Once again, welcome. This is Kevin Mitkey from the Siuslaw Public Library, recording from my dining room table with part 3 of our online Best Books program. In the first video, I described how this series would work, and I encourage you to go back and view and listen to video number 1 if you haven't heard it yet. I discussed breaking the Best Books presentation into 5 separate parts, 3 of fiction and 2 of nonfiction. This is part 3 of the fiction portion. The list of books discussed can be found on the library's website at www.siuslawlibrary.info with the titles marked as to whether or not they're available through Overdrive, Library to Go, as ebooks or e-audio. In the last 2 videos, we discussed the first 24 books on the fiction list, and I am going to pick up where I left off. So the first title for today is The Dutch House by Ann Patchett. Ann Patchett is a pretty well-known author. She wrote The State of Wonder and Commonwealth, which were very popular books. In The Dutch House, siblings Danny and Maeve. Their Dutch house is much more than a structure. It is the bones of their family, a symbol connected to love, loss, achievement, and abandonment. They are connected to this house all their lives, even after being flung out of it. This is a great book for fans of Ann Tyler and Anna Quindlen. And I will say that we had a participant at the February program who said she absolutely adored this book. So this is good literary fiction by a well-known, excellent author. Our next book is Disappearing Earth by Julia Phillips. The shattering disappearance of 2 young girls from Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula compounds the isolation and fears of a tight-woven community, connecting the lives of neighbors, witnesses, family members, and a detective throughout an ensuing year of tension. Kirkus wrote this about the book. The book opens with both a character list and a map. You'll be looking at both often as you find your footing and submerge ever more deeply in this world, which is both so different from and so much like our own. As the connections between the stories pile up and tighten, you start to worry. Will we ever get closure about the girls? Yes, we will. And you'll want to start over and read it again once you know. An unusual, cleverly constructed thriller that is also a deep dive into the culture of a place many Americans have probably never heard of, illuminating issues of race, culture, sexual attraction, and the transition from the USSR to post-Soviet Russia. Now this next book is a little bit different. This is a graphic novel for adults. A staff member wrote about this book, lovely, meditative, whimsical. Death takes a year-long sabbatical and learns to enjoy living. Deceptively simple, with line drawings and a muted color scheme, but contains some real lessons about looking around to appreciate things. This is a quick read. If you have 5 minutes, you can read Death Wins a Goldfish. I will show a couple of pages from the book. So you see, Death never takes a day off, and then he gets a letter from the HR department insisting he use up his accrued vacation time. And throughout the book, he keeps a journal of all the activities that he engages in. For example, on July 11th, had a nice time with everyone tonight except Anita. She's so competitive. Okay, our next book, Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, is kind of interesting. I like historical fiction. I never really thought of the 70s as being that historical, but that's when this book takes place. This book was listed on the most best books lists of the year. I have not read this book. If any of you have, I would be interested at some point in hearing what you have to say about it. When singer Daisy Jones meets Billy Dunn of the band The Six, the 2 rising 70s rock and roll artists are catapulted into stardom when a producer puts them together, a decision that is complicated by a pregnancy and the seductions of fame. This was a starred review, got starred reviews from a number of review journals, including Booklist and Publishers Weekly. A Woman is No Man by Etaf Rum. This is a debut novel. 3 generations of Palestinian American women in contemporary Brooklyn are torn by individual desire, educational ambitions, a devastating tragedy, and the strict mores of traditional Arab culture. One of our patrons wrote, "Powerful. One of this book's most important lessons, books and reading can change lives." The Fountains of Silence is by Ruta Sapitas. I and a couple of other co-workers had the honor of hearing her speak last fall at the Pacific Northwest Booksellers Association up in Portland, and she talked about the writing of this book. Now, she does write primarily for young adults, and I think technically this is a young adult novel. We actually have it in the adult section, but she previously wrote one of our best books from several years ago called Between Shades of Grey. It was loosely based on her family's experiences in Latvia, both before, during, and after World War II. In this book, she's looking at 1950s fascist Spain. And please note on the slide here, I do have the author's name wrong. Etaf Rum was the author of the previous book. This book is by Ruta Sapitas. It's 1957, and aspiring photographer Daniel Matheson is visiting Spain with his Texas oil tycoon father. Daniel is eager for the opportunity to flesh out his portfolio for a photography contest. What would be more prizeworthy than photos of daily life in notoriously secretive Spain? But he gets repeated warnings, some quite aggressive, against looking too closely. Another thing Daniel doesn't bank on is Anna, an arrestingly beautiful maid at the Castellana Hilton, where he's staying with his parents. As their affections deepen, so too do their differences. If you like historical fiction, and older than the 1970s, and romance, and suspense, I think you would like The Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sapitas. You know, there's not a lot of translated fiction into English. Something like 3% of books published every year in the United States were originally written in another language. This is one of those rare books. This Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk is a subversive feminist noir mystery set in Poland. When her neighbors turn up dead, and then other bodies turn up under strange circumstances, Janine, a recluse in a remote Polish village who prefers the company of animals over humans, inserts herself into the investigation, certain she knows who done it. This was a really enjoyable book. I did read this. A lot of quirky people live in her little village, and Janine, the main character, is the quirkiest of all. Growing Things is a collection of short stories by Paul Tremblay. Now, Tremblay has won the Graham Stoker Horror Award, the British Fantasy Award, and a number of others. He's written quite a few things. The most recent novel I think he's written was The Cabin at the End of the World. This short story collection brilliantly takes ordinary situations, an author reading, an AP history class, a family vacation, and seamlessly sprinkles in a sense of unease that quickly builds to a sense of pure horror. If you like horror stories, I think you'll like Growing Things. Another book that came out this past year of short stories that's a horror genre that you might be interested in is Full Throttle by Joe Hill. Joe Hill is the son of Stephen King, and taking after his father, he's writing a lot of really, really great things. Okay, the next book is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. This is a debut novel that is a shattering portrait of a family, a first love, and the redemptive power of storytelling. A letter from a son to a mother who cannot read reveals the impact of the Vietnam War on their family history and provides a view into parts of the son's life that his mother has never known. This was listed as one of the top 10 books of the year by the Washington Post, and it has gotten rave reviews. This is a lighter book, The Bookish Life of Mina Hill by Abbi Waxman. A staff member wrote, "Anxiety-prone Mina Hill is doing just fine in life. With her carefully detailed planner, small circle of friends, book clubs, and trivia nights. When a lawyer shows up at her LA bookstore job to tell her that her father has died, Nina didn't even know his name, let alone that he knew she existed. Suddenly, she's inherited a messy, complicated family of siblings, nieces and nephews, and multiple stepmothers. With her life thrown into chaos, she definitely doesn't have time for Tom, the cute, sporty trivia rival who seems to be interested in her. What a delightful book. Waxman has a witty sense of humor, and I kept laughing aloud at Nina's quirky thoughts." And I have to echo that sentiment. This was a very enjoyable book. It's a great light read. If you need something now that will pick you up, The Bookish Life of Mina Hill will do just that. The Nickel Boys is by Colson Whitehead. I think it was last year, the year before, he wrote The Underground Railroad, which was a best book of that time. Colson Whitehead is one of those authors that I think if he keeps writing in the style that he has, for coming decades, he will probably win the Nobel Prize. This book got starred reviews by Booklist, Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, Kirkus, and others. He follows his dynamic, highly awarded, best-selling Civil War saga, The Underground Railroad, with a tautly focused and gripping portrait of two African-American teens during the last vicious years of Jim Crow. Sent to Nickel Academy, based on the real Dozier School for Boys, the two teenagers struggle to survive in a very, very tough and racist environment. Disturbing and dramatic. This is not an easy read. Okay, the last of the fiction books. Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. You just got to love the cover of this book. Agreeing to help her former college roommate care for two stepchildren who possess the ability to spontaneously combust when agitated, Lily endeavors to keep her young charges cool in the face of an astonishing revelation. Kirkus says, "This is a funny and touching fable about love for kids, even the ones on fire." And Publishers Weekly writes, "Wilson captures the wrenching emotions of caring for children in this exceptional and exceptionally hilarious novel." So this is the final fiction video of the best books of 2019. Look for the nonfiction videos coming up next. Stay safe and read well.